Hey, Brian, welcome back to the show. Hey, let's talk about leadership here. Um, what's your viewpoint on that as far as sales people and companies?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me back again. I had a great time the last time, so a lot of good feedback too. So again, thanks for having me. Leadership's near and dear to my heart, as you know. I spent some time in some great time in the military, serving this great country, and I saw firsthand the difference between leadership, frankly, and dictatorship. You know what I mean? And I took a lot of great things from the military, but one of them I vowed when I get out is I was never going to just take orders from somebody ever again if it just didn't make sense or there was a safety issue or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So my experience, you can tell a leader pretty quickly is leaders have people that work with them, not for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's a we environment versus a me and you'll go do environment because I said so.
And
So
how do you define that? Can you give us an example?
yeah, I think that what you'll see leaders will take information from everybody on their team, right? They'll listen, they connect with people, right? And they'll take all of that and then they'll clearly lay out a vision based on, and it might not be exactly what you thought, but there's a piece of it there. And you're like, man, I remember us discussing that. And all of a sudden there's a very clear vision of where we're going, why we're going there, and why we're going to go there together.
Yeah.
And leaders are at the top of the hill before you're even getting there, right? They're asking you to run through a brick wall because they already did the first chisel mark, right? Those are leaders. People want to be around, be with, work with those kind of people. Now, if you look at what I've seen, unfortunately, lately is people who declare it. If you have to declare that you're a leader, you're probably not.
Probably not. Right.
Just FYI, right?
Yeah.
If you have to constantly tell people you're in charge, then you are on paper, but not in everybody else's mind. Top performers gravitate towards leaders, not dictators.
And what I see is a lot of administrators today
Yeah,
where they're
yeah,
playing office instead of leading a team,
yeah. I
right?
totally agree. I mean, I think that another great thing that leaders do, and there's some great books out there, and I'm biased to some of my former Navy friends and those guys that are putting out some great books right now, Extreme Ownership, some of those other ones where you look closely in those though. Not are they just one of the biggest reasons they're leaders is they trust their people on their team. You,
Right.
you when you go into a major battle or whatever, you can read in multiple books they talk about this. You can't be in charge of everything going on, but everybody has a clear vision, a clear objective. But how you get there in the middle of that, if you've got a detour because it's an ambush or to convert it into sales, right? If all of a sudden you run into a budget issue, you run into somebody who is the negative Nelly or whatever, you've got to be able to have the authority to make those maneuvers as long as you're headed in the same direction.
Yeah.
And what I see more and more now is just administrators who forecast, 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 pound, pound, pound. And, like I've seen some of your shows, you make me laugh and cry at the same time. Because I've been on those calls on Saturday going, wait a sec. It's in CRM. It's in your silly spreadsheet. I
Right.
already responded to 7 other divisions in the company that asked me the same question. Why am I on the phone with you?
Yeah.
Other than you're a control freak, right?
Or yeah, I don't want to read it. I want to hear it.
Right, right.
And I
Because
feel
Lord knows we
comfortable
can't
being
type.
busy.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can't type, obviously, right? So,
Yeah.
um, but so I look at leaders are ones that they hire great people because their egos checked at the door, right? They don't hire subservient people. They hire great people. They hire
Right.
people that might even be better than them at certain things,
Yeah.
right? Because they want to see them excel and they want to build this team of people that now they can give the authority to make decisions downstream without everything having to come back up to the top and you wait around forever for somebody to make a decision who's never carried a bag, has no idea about sales and what it's like for everybody out in the field, and is dictating stuff that makes no sense to anybody.
Yeah. And I get that a lot on LinkedIn. That there's always, and typically there's 3 letters after their last name, MBA, where they're like, oh, you reps, you think you're better than you are. And it's like, oh, you're all, you know,
Yeah, where is this belittling reps all of a sudden come from? Like,
you're like,
I, I remember
nuts.
back in the good old days where we were revered, not because we got paid a lot, because we solved the biggest problems in the industry, right? We were revered and we had great talent around us because we were out there working hard, spending 90% of our time, guess where? With customers, because we
That's it.
cared about them. They're
Yeah.
people. And
Be-
now
be-
we spend 70% of our time talking to each other. It's crazy.
uh,
Crazy.
yeah. And the common question I get from founders is, do we still need to pay sales reps commission? And I go, do you
Oh,
want
wow.
them to
We still
care?
need to pay you guys golden parachutes when you fail miserably.
Yeah. And they call reps greedy. And it's like, well, how much equity are you willing to give up instead
Right.
of commission? You-
Right.
You're here for equity.
Right.
They're here for income. And,
Exactly. Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing
That,
wrong
that,
with that at all. And it's, and I think I saw one of your things too is we're going to pay you based on how much effort you made. Wait, time, what? Are you kidding me? It's like, when did all of a sudden salespeople became, these
it's
men and
acting.
women that are just stupid and clearly can't do anything on their own. So we need all these different tools and enablement, and we got to babysit them daily and pound on them because none of them have any self
No,
motivation. Obviously, that's not leadership.
it's not
It's
leadership.
not.
That's
It,
administration.
it's administration.
Management at best.
And I don't even see it as management because great managers, I've always told people that I hire, I'm like, if I need to manage you, we're both going to have a bad day.
Right.
Meaning that if I have to spend that much time, like, working with you on and managing you, that means that something's really off.
Yeah.
What I would rather do is work with you, lead you through this, and then have you learn and become more self-sufficient so I can trust you to go do the things that you need to do to be successful for you and the overall team. It's called a team for a reason. Sales is a team sport, but yet we're singling out the salespeople anymore as if they're literally just nobodies who have no clue how to do anything on their own. And it's the least productive I've ever seen executives in sales management in a long time, unfortunately,
It
because of it.
is. And I think people have tried to reduce the cost of sales
Right.
instead of increase
You know what
sales.
one of my most dreaded words in sales anymore is?
What's that?
Whenever they start to talk about, well, we're going to have to look at breaking this piece out or breaking that piece out, because we want to grow that or whatever. And it's just like, segmentation, right? For the sake of segmenting,
Yeah.
right? It's not that we offer anything specific. Now, don't get me wrong, federal, some of those things I
Need to
completely
be.
agree with,
Yeah.
but it's where we're gonna take away from our successful people because the idea is we're going to give them less so they'll more focus. And it's like, okay, and again, I understand some of that, Brian, but it's like anymore, it's become just ground and pound, ground and pound.
Well, that is leadership on determining when it makes sense.
Right, right,
Because, like, if you're going into a foreign country and you have no expertise, you shouldn't have the guy in New York flying to Spain,
right,
right?
right.
You hire a
See, you have
distributor.
what you described as critical mass, right? What I see is throw bodies at growth. It's
Right,
like you
that,
can't throw bodies at growth.
right.
Right? Hey, we're going to get a whole bunch of money and we're going to go hire a whole bunch of people, even though we have no idea if we're going to grow or not.
Right.
Versus, man, oh man, with this person or my current sales team is crushing it and they're overloaded. They can't get to it. Now let's add another person. By the way, they're people. Let's
Yeah,
not
not
align on a
resources.
spreadsheet, right? Just like customers have become, right? They're aligned on the spreadsheet. No, these are people. I'm out there with them. My team's out there with them every day. How about we actually understand their needs
Yeah.
and not try to shove our needs down their throat, right? I need the order right now because I'm getting hammered from, and it's like, man, I understand asking for favors, but you ask for favors from a business perspective when you've earned it,
Yeah.
because you've done stuff for them. And now maybe, when I call somebody, I'll never threaten them as a director or an area vice president. I never called and said, look, you don't do this now, that deal, that price, it's gone, right? How, how many times does that actually work for you? Maybe once or twice, maybe it has worked, but how's your relationship with that customer or more importantly, that person
Yeah.
anymore? it's just, it blows my mind anymore, Brian.
And why do you think there's such a void? Is it just the focus on things moving so fast that people don't want to do the right things and the right pace?
Honestly, I think it's because business is moving so fast. If we're not growing at 500% a year, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And then panic sets in, and they're like, you know what? We got to bring in a whole bunch of new people, even though they have one playbook, by the way. And it reminds me, I'm a huge college football fan, right? And college wrestler. And it's like, hey, we're up against the greatest defense, run defense in the world, but we're going to run the ball up the gut. But
Yeah.
wait a sec, I just hired two of the greatest wide receivers, AKA salespeople. No, we're going to run it up the gut. So it's like, because it's the only playbook they have.
Right.
But they hired this person because somewhere in their career, they were wildly successful at something.
At some
Now they're going
place.
to come in as way up here at the very top. They're
Yeah.
going to teach us all how to go to the next level. And it's like, and then how many of those have you seen 2 years later? The culture's demolished. All the good salespeople have left because they're not going to put up with it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like Groundhog Day. I see it over and over again.
I do. Yeah, and I went through that. I was at this company. It was a niche player, and it was never really going to be much more than a niche player.
Yeah.
But it could have grown, 50, 100% a year.
Yeah.
But they brought in a new VP of sales who came from a high flying company that was
Yeah.
really just a demo proposed close company.
Yeah.
They were the dominant player in their space, and he just wrecked it.
Yeah.
Tripled the sales force.
It was throw bodies at growth, micromanage like a maniac, and
Yeah,
then declare that you're a leader everywhere you go. Just ask me.
right.
You know, you know what I mean? One of those kind of people with an ego bigger than the growth that they're projecting. And it just, I don't understand it anymore, Brian.
And the military is a good analogy because if you look at what happened in Afghanistan back in like '02,
Yep.
right? Bush gave it to the CIA and they gave it to special ops.
Yeah.
Tightly coupled teams, highly focused. But then you look at Iraq, which was just a train wreck. Too many people doing too many things.
Yeah.
What there's craziness going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, I got a soft spot in my heart for all the military. And, as you know, I'm doing the consulting. By the way, from the last time we were together, I've gotten a bunch of phone calls, and now I'm helping companies as a consultant to identify their why, right? So they got a great widget or great technology, but nobody's ever identified the actual why. Like, why would anybody buy this? What's its use? But also just leadership, right? How do you lead people versus a dictatorship or whatever it might be? And to your point, special forces are a perfect example of, it's not like you don't have people in charge, believe me. It's not like people aren't lead, and they're leading you into actually harm's way,
Yeah.
and you're still following, right?
Right.
Now, granted, you got to follow orders, but there is people that were phenomenal leaders versus just giving orders, right? And that's what I see now in the sales world. I'm seeing more and more people just giving orders versus truly leading people through it, having the buy-in of your people, and then rocking and rolling from there. You want
Right.
to rock and roll, get everybody on the same page, and everybody feels like they're heard, and lead them through it. Those are the companies that are wildly successful.
And I think what happens if you don't do that is you get a lot of people acting like they're working
Yeah,
instead of working.
yeah. Well, they're
Eh,
busy doing the busy work that you've assigned to them,
Right. That
right?
you want to see.
Yeah, that you want to see. I saw people being rewarded for doing the busy work
Yeah.
versus the top performers. And I'm like, look, let's be crystal clear about sales, and it's the thing I love about it. Just like military and moving up special forces is, you either perform or you go home, right? Well, what I started to see is, well, even though you're not performing, you're doing all the right things. Well, the right thing in sales is selling. Excuse
Yes.
me. I'm sorry.
There's no
Being
faking it,
successful with your
or it
team.
should be no
Now,
faking it.
not being successful despite people. There
Yeah.
are, I ran into some of those where I've got some salespeople that are successful, but there's flames behind them, right?
Yeah.
They scorched earth. So you got to be careful on both those. But I think that's where the leadership comes in. But Steve Jobs had many famous quotes. my favorite, and I'm sure I'm not going to get it perfect, so please, people, don't pick it apart. But the theme was, we hire smart people to tell us what to
To
do,
do.
not tell them what to do.
Right.
And I'm like, why are you hiring some of the best salespeople on the planet and treating them like children? I
Yeah.
don't get it anymore, Brian. I really don't.
Well, I think people don't understand sales. I think they look at sales in the rearview mirror, meaning the
Yeah.
orders are in, the service has been provided. Now let's equalize it. And why are we paying that person so much? They don't
I mean,
see.
all they did was get that first meeting, and every time I would hear that, I'm a former SE, so I can pick on this a little bit. Is I would hear at times, well, just get me in, and just get our team in, and it's over. And I'm
Right.
like, do you know how long it takes to get into a Fortune 100 company and get that first meeting that's
Yeah.
relevant at a VP or whatever level? That's the hard part. You know what I
Well,
mean? Is
and then you
building
get,
that relationship.
and let's say they don't buy. Then what does everybody say?
It's
Oh,
my
they
fault.
don't get it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Get me into a smarter place.
Right? Somebody who
That's it.
understands what we do better. No, you failed. It's
Yes.
really simple, right? You failed to
Yeah.
connect with your customer and understand their issues and then apply it to it. And I
Yeah.
think that's where, where you become great salespeople is when you're consultative and you're solving major problems. You're not being forced to go in there and throw up your product all over them, and you don't even know if it's applicable yet.
Yeah.
So
And when I talk to reps who are looking at a job, I always say that mojo with the manager is probably more important than the company.
yeah.
Because if you're not getting the sense, if that person looks at you as a cog in his wheel,
Right.
run.
Run. Yeah, because you're going to get burned out and you're going to get micromanaged because he or she doesn't see him or her as a person or
Right.
people. They see him as a line item. Again, it's throwing bodies at growth. What I
Yeah.
saw with that is we're going to manage every salesperson to about an average. I saw this game too. And as an AVP, it drove me crazy when I would see, and I would know what they're doing because I carried a bag for a long time. I get what you're doing with the comp plan
Yeah.
is you're going to let them make money the first year, and then year 2 and 3 you're going to hammer them, and then in year 4 we'll do it all over again, and we'll throw bodies at growth so we can average out what we pay them over a 3-year period. And I'm
That's
like,
it.
look, we aren't idiots, right? We can do mathematics. We know what you're up to, and we can see through it versus putting together a multi-year plan on how we're going to get there. And I don't mind the comp plan being aligned with where we're headed as a company. That's fine because
Yeah.
we can all buy into it. What I can't handle is a totally metric driven company who only sees metrics and not people.
Right.
And no matter what, you're going to drive to a certain metric, even if I have shadow sales forces competing against each other.
Yeah.
Because God forbid, I'm not gonna double pay somebody, right? It's just craziness.
And I think today we've gone way overboard with the metrics because I think that's blinding people from the connection with the person.
Yeah,
Okay. If you're not getting the sales, okay, so help me understand what's going on.
right.
And within an hour conversation, you can tell either the person is blaming somebody else, isn't getting it, is doing something wrong, or just needs some help.
Yeah.
But if you just count dials, it's like they're
Oh,
gaming
and that's
it.
the thing is you get down to the metrics where it's how many meetings per week, how many dials per week now, how many, and it's like, oh, and I get that there needs to be metrics. Don't get me wrong.
Has to
We've
be
talked about it.
activity. Yes.
There needs to be a single language for qualification. The flavor of the year seems to be MedPick right now. What people I think forget is there's been a MedPick like thing for 20 years, right? It's not a new concept. It is a
No.
good tool, but it's a tool. And then you have good things like command a message, which I'm an old EMCer back in the glory days. We had this thing called the EMC effects wheel, which is the same type of thing is here's the business challenge within this vertical, and then here's our solution on how we solve it from a financial perspective, and all the business reasons. The products were down in the really small print where way
Yeah.
down at the bottom, right? Same mindset now with like command a message and some of those other things is what is our value prop in solving some of these huge problems that these customers are facing these days.
And that's it. Not like use the military paradigm. What is boot camp, right? It's getting up at the same time every day. It's
Yeah.
doing the same exercises every day, the same routines.
Yeah.
And that becomes habits.
Right.
And a leader does that without telling the people.
That's right.
They say, okay, we're going in pre-call. Okay, what have you heard so far? What do they need? Who are they looking at? Who's in charge? Who's the
Well, and
hidden
leaders
person?
aren't trying to find something to trip you up.
Right. They're trying to make
Leaders
you
are
think
trying to
about it.
find your blind spots to help you. How
Yeah.
many management people have you seen that are almost, and this is where like a leader doesn't send you up the hill and sit there and go like this to see how you're going to do, right?
Yeah.
Or an example is they don't pick apart, what you're trying to do. They actually try to find your blind spots and try to help you.
Help
And
you.
don't get me wrong. There is no doubt I've had salespeople that forecast on hope, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you do need to pick apart, but you still, as a leader, can do that in a way that doesn't necessarily belittle or,
Right.
this macho-ness to, some of the executive management, sales management anymore is, we just got to beat them down to see the cream of the crop rise to the top.
Yeah. Th-
Whatever. You know what I
Good
mean?
luck with that.
Whatever.
And I had a manager, we got along pretty good, but he loved to give a presentation. He was great at it. He was charming, entertaining,
Yeah.
but he had this thing where he'd give a great presentation. And if the deal was slipping or it wasn't moving, he goes, what happened? I was there. I gave the presentation. They loved it. And
Right.
I used to say, well, guess what? The deal has a little bit more to do than just a presentation.
Well,
Right.
absolutely. And frankly, where people learn, I think as a great leader, you don't rescue people. Where people learn is in the struggle.
Yeah.
But you have to be alongside them in that struggle, not, and again, I see so much belittlement in sales anymore, in sales leadership, and so much, like I said, negativity. And, like I'm looking for my leaders to come up with something that maybe I didn't think of. One of my best leaders ever came up with the idea of, have you ever gone back to your customer and asked them why you won? We always
Yeah.
spend so much time on, post-mortem and triage on why we lost. How about we go start finding out why we won?
Yeah.
And 80% of the time, I'll bet you it's not what you think it is. And I did this with one of my leaders, managers, and I called the CIO and I said, hey, my boss wants to have a get together and just understand why you chose us and why we won. And this guy was a Carnegie Mellon professor, been in IT for a long time, very, decorated CIO. And he says, you are the first salesperson to ever ask me that question. Yes, I'll take that meeting. And we sat there and I'm all excited, Brian. I'm like, oh, I know what he's going to say. I'm the greatest salesperson ever. I ran the greatest campaign ever. I understood his business. And, there was some of that. But what shocked me when he did say it was, I'm not sure that this project is possible. But what I am sure of is if there's anybody that can pull it off, it's you and your team.
Yeah.
Stunned me, my team, even my manager, right? So I learned from a leader, that was a great piece that I've carried with me my whole career now, to say, hey, when we win a brand new customer and a big Fortune 500 customer, as soon as you can, and I don't care if it's a dinner or whatever, or, whatever, but ask them why we won.
Yeah.
And then be quiet,
Be quiet.
and
And
let them answer you.
it's probably not going to be price, and it's not going to be the product.
No.
It's going to be what you did to guide them to that decision, to
Especially if
support.
you're at a C-level person.
Right. You
They're
mitigated
right.
risk.
They're mitigating risk. They're looking at how am I going to be aligned and lead my, my IT organization through where the business is going.
Right.
You guys understood that and helped me solve a major problem that I wasn't even sure what we were going to do.
Yeah.
That's when you did the right things, right? Because and it could be off the wall stuff, right? I've heard some answers to that I'm not going to repeat here, but they will follow, right?
Yeah.
They will run through that with you. So.
And do you think it can exist if it doesn't come from the top, meaning from the CEO down? If the CEO, unfortunately, typically is a technical founder,
Yeah.
And too often, and you kind of alluded to this, that they almost want to outsource sales,
Right.
meaning hire the guy from the adjacent category killer, bring him in and do the same thing here.
Yeah, I've seen it in a lot of startups, and that's actually, again, some of the consulting I'm doing, thanks to you, is the co-founder is really more of a CTO, has an incredible product or widget, and can't understand why for a year now nobody's bought it. So clearly, we just need to outsource sales, because as soon as people see what we do, they're going to buy it. And
Oh,
it's like, no, actually, I'm working with a company that does fuel testing, right? To give you an example. And so they send out the bottles, you send them their fuel from, Joe Bag of Donuts, gas station, and they make money that way. But they had this rudimentary kind of software product. It
yeah.
was capturing all this, because fuel, by the way, has about a 20% failure rate. And I'm like, well, okay, well, wait a second. Well, who uses fuel? And so I started to peel back the onion of, you know what?
The
Your
decision.
biggest channel is creating a software product. So I brought in a software developer, capturing all that historical data, right? And being able to trend it, work with weights and measures, because you guys are on all these boards, be a thought leader, get on LinkedIn and social media and start becoming a thought leader and be the data warehouse for all of that information. And lo and behold, now go sell to the people who make generators, the
Yeah.
people that, weights and measures. And all of a sudden they're seeing their business explode, because they're not just a fuel testing business.
Yeah.
They're a software company, lo and behold,
Yeah.
right? So it's interesting where, to answer your question, is if what I have found is if the CTO or somebody that's more of a technical founder understands that they need the help and will listen, that they can be wildly successful, right? It's if they think their product is amazing and salespeople are clueless and we don't understand why I haven't sold anything for a year, but we'll just outsource it to some sales group. And then we did that, and gosh, we've hired a bunch of inside salespeople, and that's still not working. And we can't figure out why. Because we're professionals. That's why.
Yeah.
We're very good at what we do. We really
And
are.
it tends to take the third round of
It does.
tries
Yeah.
before they're
Yeah.
open-minded.
Right.
And
Right.
I always used to say to founders, it's like, oh, you got to find a salesperson who's going to tell you what he needs or she
Yeah.
needs. And
Yep.
then you deliver that for them. You are
Yeah.
part of their team.
Right. Right. And I think to your point is, does it have to be from the top or kind of be from the side? I don't think I don't think dictators and bad leaders hire good leaders.
They
So I would
don't.
say no.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think people that come in like that are closed-minded, egotistical, it's all about them. It's how they're gonna, they're typically gonna hire people, and you'll see it is, they'll bring in their posse, right? AKA people that will just listen to them and do what they say, and will
Yeah.
run the same playbook that they're gonna run, and then they'll all fail together. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So, which I've seen, by the way, over and over again.
I've seen it too. And I think for reps, you got to look for that signal. If
Right.
what they're looking for is a magician versus a salesperson, and you're
Right.
not a magician, run.
Yeah, you're not a magician, or if they're looking for somebody who is just completely subservient and obedient, no matter how many floggings we give. Usually, by the way, if you haven't noticed, most top performing salespeople, and I used to be one, so I'll pick on myself, are a little eccentric, a little emotional, yours truly, right? But and great leaders understand how to work with each one of them individually. I've always
Yeah.
said great sales teams are like, we're having an all-star team, or the Yankees back when they used to win. No offense, but having the best of the best. And how do you figure out to take all of these type A people that are all a little eccentric, a little quirky, and they all sell their own way,
Wait, right.
rowing towards in the same direction? The people who are able to do that are leaders.
They are. Instead
They
of
take
trying to
great
make them
people.
soldiers,
Exactly.
sales is not a soldier business.
No, it's not. And that's where like I said, I do take a ton of stuff I learned in the military, and I love all my brothers and sisters out there that are fighting for our freedom. And I take a lot of good things. But like I said, the one thing I did run into is non-leaders who just had a rank higher than me with massive egos who dictated, in some cases, even when it could have been dangerous.
Yeah.
but you're going to do it or you're going to go see the captain and go to captain's mess, right?
Yeah.
And I promise myself, I am never just taking orders from somebody again just because you're being a dictator, right? And
Cool.
I don't want to be a troublesome and be too noisy either, and fall on my
But
own sword. I think there
but
for a while
it's
I got a
much
little
more
bit
like the special forces model,
right. It is.
where you practice, you anticipate, but then you jump out of the helicopter and you try and figure out how to get it done.
And look, every single one of those people on the special forces team as an individual are unbelievable.
Yeah.
But they also understand it as a team. Without the team, they're nothing.
Yeah.
And everything they do, everything they think of is for each other and
Yeah.
for that team. Again, they're incredible operators on their own. Believe me, you run into one of them and there's 10 of you, you lose, right?
Yeah.
But they never forget about their teammates ever. They never
Yeah.
leave a teammate behind. Those creeds and everything are there for a reason. It's because that's how you build high performing teams. And I, by the way, I would hear that all the time, right? New leader comes in, Brian, you need to know how to manage. And I'm not sure if you've ever managed a high performing team. And of course, then I would laugh out loud, almost because I'm like, and you have no idea what you're talking about, right? Because you've never led people into harm's way. So
Right. Yeah.
you're gonna tell me that, okay, that's kind of funny to me,
Yeah.
but okay, go ahead, I'm listening,
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
and
So
again, go ahead, I'm sorry.
remind people where they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, again, I think LinkedIn, I think the last time I forgot to let people know, it's Brian Bowman, Bollman. I'm on LinkedIn. I haven't really put anything up for my consulting business. I actually may go back into sales management here soon,
Yeah.
but you can find me on LinkedIn, Brian with a Y, Bowman, Bollman. Right now I got my Home with Heroes thing, which is my nonprofit for veterans at near and dear, but I'm coming back. The passion's still there. I'm coming back. So I'm going to do something because I want to help people again. And I want to lead. I want to try to help and try to lead people again. So check me out on there for now and send me some more of those private messages. I appreciated them. It was great. So thanks for having me again, Brian.